everybody. I am Minogue, and this is Too Much for Brunch. So I hope you guys know what you're getting in for. Usually I do this drunk, so you're gonna get a different view. I pick a topic, just talk a bunch of shit. But today, I always open my YouTube videos with making a statement or a question. So the statement that I want to make with this topic is that I find it hard to swallow as a newly 30-year-old gay man. We got marriage equality last year, and our pride ceremonies are getting so much bigger and more grand and more expensive. And I find it hard to swallow that we want so much straight acceptance, but there is not a lot of acceptance within the community ourselves. Even with the existence of something like HavenCon, it just proves that there are so many of us that don't feel that we belong in the gay community. You know, so the acronym is getting longer, you know, it's the LGBTQRSTV, whatever it is. But it's getting so much longer, and I do love that, but I also feel like everybody wants to have their own identity, and I understand that. But there's so much separation. When I first came into the Pride community and I was doing Pride marches and canvassing and all of those lovely things, and I was in a group called Bliss, which was gay and lesbian youth services back in New York. I felt there was just more community, and I feel like within the last few years, I think, not even the last few years, it's been more than 2 years, I feel like it's just getting worse. So when I first started going to Pride, I was like 14. I was very young, I had a very accepting grandmother, very accepting family members, so I got to go young, and I was like 14 years old in Buffalo, New York, spreading my little fairy wings. And Peach is also from Buffalo.
That's right.
How old were you for your first Pride experience?
Oh, I was a late blooming flower. It had to be 28. Yeah.
How were you doing all that time?
For me, you know, I'm kind of more, I wear a lot of hats, and I'm kind of, I guess, the Q in that acronym, or whatever that's worth. And so, you know, for me, it's, you know, it's easier to just go along with what everybody's doing, you know what I mean? And even though I'm not comfortable, even though I'm not getting what I want out of life, and it's not really making me happy, without being around the right people, you know, finding your people, what do you do? Where do you go? Like, how do you, you know, you can't just develop as an island, you know what I mean? So despite all that, I still eventually, it took more time because I didn't have those people around me to, you know, for me to relate to. It took me longer, but I did. And so my kind of first interaction was actually as a cosplay character, to be honest, from a video game. So as a girl.
Children.
Well, I remember, okay, this is kind of, I guess, a nice little side bit. There is the game Final Fight, like 1990.
How were you, like Poison?
Yes, Poison and Roxy in the game. And Poison and Roxy were actually transgender characters in the game. And that was back in the day, and what happened was Nintendo translated for the NES, or SNES, but they said, well, we can't have this violence against women in the game. And the Japanese team said, well, they're not specifically, and at the time it's different, but they're not really women. So then Nintendo actually changed it into two scrawny guys instead. So with that character, you know, I had seen for years and kind of was, I don't know, everyone has that one person, even though it's, you know, a game character that I kind of identified with. So, and that's kind of how I got started. And then, you know, I was interacting with the community, but, you know, I'm definitely, you know, like Bailey was saying, the acceptance and stuff is not really there. I mean, you know, is a gay bar my scene? No. I mean, is a straight bar my scene? No. Like, what is my scene? Well, okay, so.
Okay, so what about you, Dean? What was your first gay community experience? How old were you?
Well, I went to a boarding arts high school in Minneapolis for 11th and 12th grade, so that pretty much was a Pride Fest. And so I like faded into it gradually. You know, I was working as a musician, like as I was coming out of high school and through college, and so a lot of that, we played a lot of Pride Fests. So most of my initial experiences with formal Pride Fests and gay festivals and gay events were from the musical perspective. So I was oftentimes a musical act. I was very openly gay as a singer, as the front man of a band that had 3 other straight members. And so I oftentimes would approach it from that perspective, which was cool to kind of jump in from the behind the scenes. So I was not really an observer. I was more of a hired hand consistently. And then I had an all-male Britney Spears cover band that would play Pride Fests across the upper Midwest. That was nice because then you only had a band during the summer because it was cold all winter, and everybody already knew all the words, which just means that everybody's having fun. So, and it's all Britney.
It's all Britney. Everybody loves Britney.
I love Britney.
So for me, it was pretty opposite. When I came on the scene, I was like, yeah, here I am, love me. And I was bartending, and I was in parades, and I was organizing, and I started gay groups at my high school, and I did, LGBT, dances. And I was like 16 in high school. I was organizing that kind of shit. So for me, I was like the professional gay. Like, everybody knew who I was. Everybody knew that I was gonna like make everything just cover it all in rainbows, and that was kind of my gig. And I was okay. I was happy with it. But as I got older, I noticed that all this separation, and I noticed that there was a lot of times where I would do a lot of work, and another person, usually the whitest, most butch, cisgender man, would be plastered on all the posters and not really doing a damn thing. And I would be doing all the work, and then I show up and there's this frat boy that I've never seen before taking all the credit, and I'm not okay with that. Children don't know me very well yet, but I think you can tell I enjoy attention. So I really wasn't cool with doing all the work, and then being like, well, we need someone else to kind of be the poster boy for your work, and that wasn't cool for me. I did back away from the scene. I would say when I was 28 now, so I think I was like 22 is when I really was like, I need to figure out what's going on here and figure out what's happening. But in that same instance, in the back of the way, the grinder boom happened. And when that happened, it became very acceptable for gay men to say, I don't want to be bothered with someone who is too feminine, or someone who is black, or who is fat, or who is Asian. And it became okay. And if you call someone out on it, it's usually, it's just my preference. You can't tell me it doesn't turn me on. It's like, but our community needs to be about more than who we want to sleep with. If we're going to call it pride, and we're going to want equality, and we're going to want acceptance, it needs to start, I think, at home. And I personally have friends from all of the letters of our little acronym that's getting longer by the minute, probably adding 2 letters while we're in this conference. But I know for me, it was when I was 22, and that's when I kind of stopped organizing so much with the pride things. When I realized that even though I was doing like the lion's share of the work, that my face and my persona weren't really wanted in association with certain organizations and the pride things. So I will say, when did you start to realize the inequities in our community like that?
I probably started noticing it with the grinder boom, like you were saying. Like, I am lucky. I am white, relatively masculine, and like kind of normal sized. So people would, but I didn't have a problem getting onto being a poster boy. But certainly, do I think that that's fair? Probably not. Absolutely not. And so I didn't really feel the negative consequences of it immediately. And it was only when I would, be in a long-term relationship with someone who was none of those things, that it became apparent to me that, like, wow, people treat me differently than they treat this person that I love, And so that's probably when I started noticing it the most. And then once you start, you don't stop noticing those types of things. What people talk about, microaggressions, and just general homophobia within the gay community. You see it all the time, where it's like you're not on our dodgeball league, you're not one of us.
Yeah.
There is sort of a heteronormative push that a lot of the gay community puts out there.
So gross. it's so gross to me.
Yeah, and I don't really see the value in that. I don't see the value in acting like straight people just because that's straighter. But
That's how you mean. I know that's another huge point for me. I just don't understand this need to be straight acting. Straight people are boring. Like it's just
I'm not, not you.
Not you guys. But I'm just saying, it's being gay is just it gives you so much license to be so free and just do. When you're straight, you have these milestones. You go to prom, you go to college, you get married, you have kids, you buy a house, you do this and that. When you're gay, you do whatever the fuck you want. You can just
cool.
It's cool, isn't it? But that's a huge problem. I know we talked about the other groups, and I know I got, I took the brunt of a lot of things for being black, and it's just a weird thing. But on that note, like I said, I'm pretty masculinely presenting for the most part. We'll get back to that. I want to make another point about my masculine presentingness. But then also, I'm pretty, so that carried me a lot of the way. But I think a lot of people, a lot of my personal friends who I feel are the furthest pushed outside of the community are the transgender and the very femininely presenting men. So I feel more than anything in my heart that we owe so much to drag queens and transgender people who are out there on the front lines, taking all the bullets, getting beaten up just for walking down the street because they look how they look and they act how they act, and then in our dating profiles, we don't want to date them, and they're not romantic material, and they're not sexually pleasing to us for no reason, and it really, really, really upsets me. I cannot stress that enough. I think that the non-conforming gender people in our acronym I think they're our backbone. I think that's such a huge thing. And I think gay men, myself included, I'm very fabulous, and I get a pass to be though, because I'm a gay man and I'm funny. So I get allowed to showboat a little bit. And a lot of transgender people can't do that. So speaking of Peach.
Yes. Well, my initial kind of interaction, like I was saying, it's not really any of my scenes. I mean, what is my scene? You kind of look at as something people don't understand. So honestly, I have as much fun usually at straight establishments as I do at gay establishments, but neither are my home. So people think, oh, well, trans and gay and lesbian and drag, it's like it's all like one big thing, and it really isn't. And I think that's what we're finding out as it becomes more people are out about it. I'll tell you right off the bat, most drag queen, first of all, that's something completely different, and they do not like trans people at least the ones I've ran into. I don't know if it's competition, or I don't know what, it just kind of doesn't know what to do with that person, but I've gone out to a lot of clubs, I've seen a lot of queens, and I get a lot of attitude. So that's definitely two different apples and oranges. But I go out anyway, I don't care.
That is another point that I was going to make, even 2 points. I was like 2 points connected. I was asking if you had ever been on Grindr. Because we're from the same town. I don't know if you're in Austin now, but we're both from a town in New York State, and I never saw you on. But
no, I don't use it.
It's not baby. But there is that stigma of like what kind of gay people are allowed to be in the community because they don't want us to make each other look bad or something like that. You don't want the drag queens to be in front anymore because of vulgarity or because of the raunchiness, but they don't want the transgender people to be in front because people are weirded out about it. And there's this whole bathroom scandal thing with the laws and everything, which is absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
And then of course you don't want. I forgot what I was going to say. Just right in that sentence. Usually when I do this, I have time to edit things out, so I'm going to cut that out.
I think it's a lack of pride at that point. You're ashamed of something. You don't want someone to make you look bad because that, like, what are you trying to save? You know what I mean? And it's just, it's insulting to other people. And like any group of people, you know, there's always discrimination. And I think, you know, as the family grows, it's just becoming more repetitive.
Yeah, there's going to be, I mean, anytime you have two people, or like two groups of people that are trying to accomplish a really similar task in two different directions, there's going to be animosity. And I can see that with the drag and trans communities, because, like you said, there's animosity there because the trans are saying that drag queens are taking away from their struggle, and the drag queens are oftentimes making their living doing drag. And so I can see how there could be conflict there, but I have not personally been a part of it.
So I was going to say along the same lines, even in the gay community, there's, you know, people who don't want the young, fabulous people like myself doing all the talking anymore. They want, you know, the married couples and the adoptees, and they want those kind of people in the front. I do not ever want children, ever, cannot stress that enough. But I think marriage equality is real.
Well, I mean, you know, the equal rights is, obviously we've had some wins there lately. We are fighting some more battles with primarily transgender rights seem to be taking a big, coming to the forefront now, which is great, which I think has been viewed of as like kind of the next step, and a lot of the retaliation to gay rights has been directed at trans people.
I never made that connection, that's very true.
Yeah, so like as soon as we get gay rights, they're like, how can we subvert them somehow? And so you attack probably the most vulnerable part of the community.
It's so
you
true.
know?
So true.
We're seeing that happening right now. And so marriage equality, I have my own opinions on that type of thing. I don't even want to.
Okay, it's not that I think it's trash. That was the first thing I was going to say, is that it's trash. It's not trash. Equality is equality. We all deserve equality. We all deserve to be able to do whatever the fuck we want. There shouldn't be any law saying that certain people can't get married. That's trash. But for this whole thing, being gay doesn't just, jeez, it doesn't. Having marriage equality isn't
the end point.
right. I don't know.
I think the point there is for one group, and then okay, well then, do we need to keep going? No,
There's so many
because there's
people,
other groups of people that
so
are
many
still
people
fighting.
in the fight who were just like, we got marriage equality, we're done.
Yeah.
No more money, no more fundraisers. We got what we wanted. Good luck.
Basically, the heteronormative community
Yeah, they were
got what they wanted.
Thank you, bye.
And so
that was
I see where you're going.
that was a really hard thing to stomach when, you know, we're still dying. You know, transgender people in particular are still dying and can't use bathrooms. And you're like, not my problem. But who was fighting with you all these years for marriage equality? It just doesn't. I should rehearse this part better because I'm getting all flustered. It's very upsetting to me. And I don't like you were saying, like that whole, like, this person can't be a part of the group because they're gonna make us that whole thing like, oh, so-and-so is too gay or they're not sure acting enough. It's disgusting. Like, if a guy, okay, so I don't know if you guys all saw, you know, the schedule of the Flyers today, but takes a picture of me in my high school football jersey, which is fine. It's a good picture of me. I'm okay with that. But that picture, I feel like when people meet me, and I'm not, you know, some butch football player kind of guy, I feel like they're turned off. And I feel a lot of people, not even just like sexually turned off, but some people just kind of like, well, I don't really think we can be friends because you're not as masculine as I thought you would be. Or that happens a lot. I'm 6'4", I'm a big guy, and I think people always want me to be more masculine or more of like a thug, which is never. It's not. I'm not by any means a thug. Or there's nothing gangster about me. That's not who I am. No. A lot of guys will meet me and then start to get to know me, and they're like, "Oh, you went to college? Oh, you read books? Oh, you like Lady Gaga? I don't want to be around you anymore." And I think that's crazy to me that we stereotype each other to this extent of exclusion when we want so much acceptance from people who aren't us. We fight tooth and nail to get straight people to leave us alone, and tear each other to shreds all the time. On Facebook, there's been memes going around lately about like, I don't do this and that, I'm not a cliche, I'm a man who likes men, or after this one, there's all obviously that joke about lesbians getting in relationships and just moving into each other with each other like a week later. There's so much negativity in our own community, and I want to talk about like how to subvert it. Now, I subvert it by trolling people. If people say I'm not masculine enough, or if someone asks me if I'm masculine or something, I'll like go like straight up like start talking about Britney Spears, or I'll like invite them someone to a drag show or something like that, or I'll just like completely like do 180. Or I had one guy who had like Master Masculine's profile, and I like made fun of his shirt. I was like, oh, your shirt's not masculine enough. He got so mad. I wish I had screenshots of that. He had Master Mask only in his profile, and I was like, oh, your shirt has like stripes in it that are like purple. That's not masculine enough for me. I don't think we're gonna work out or whatever. He's furious. And it should have been good screenshots of that. It was so funny to me. But like, you seem like you just avoid it all.
Well, when it comes to that scene, yeah, there's a lot of avoiding with that, because honestly, I mean, I'm a person that I'm going to want to connect with someone as a person. I don't really care what your, the whole gender thing is, as long as, we are an awesome tag team. But like as you mentioned, there's all kinds of roadblocks, and I think, a lot of this roadblock stuff is, with the digital age, Hot or Not, Grindr, stuff like that, Facebook, it really facilitates and is a catalyst for creating stereotypes and for creating, like turning people into products. You know what I mean? So, I don't like that, and making checklists for people and what I like and don't like, and really turning people into like, should I buy that TV or this TV or this car? Oh, this one's a little nicer. You know what I mean? Like it's all about me, and like what I want, and there's absolutely zero connection. Like, as anyone can know, can say, when you meet someone in person, you get a whole different vibe and picture than whatever you've done for months online with somebody. So I hate that. That's why I avoid it. I don't get involved with it because it's usually I found to be a failure. Part of it is, okay, I'm expressing how I want in this online scenario because it's easier for me, and I can understand like, with the mask on, it's easier to say these things, and maybe that's what you really think or whatever. But the problem is, you end up creating more negativity that maybe wasn't there, and a lot of things that you think being behind that barrier, you don't discover are false until you actually meet the people. So it creates a whole litany of problems, and it's very unhealthy. Yeah.
I didn't even really think of like people have become sort of commodities, especially with like Tinders, when you're swiping left or swiping right, and you don't meet. We got on Tinder though. But I think like we're a case where I think we met and it was like really great chemistry. It just doesn't always happen. Sure. But we met and it was really great, and like we're buddies, and it's good. But I found myself uninstalling. Mother gets bored, and I don't sleep a lot. I'm an insomniac. I'm always up at like 3 and 4 in the morning, and there's no one to talk to. None of my friends are answering the phone. Gotta talk to some strangers that are within 1 mile radius. What about you?
So in terms of subverting social norms, coming at it from the perspective of a person of the majority, where I am cisgender white male, how do I subvert sort of the preconceptions that other people are suffering from? Because like I'm masculine enough that I don't really get any flack for it, and it's important to acknowledge that type of thing. So like I acknowledge that I am a person of majority, and then use essentially just prudence. Prudence is what you need. You need to like look at it and be like, okay, is this something that I am? Either you can examine your own behaviors or how people behave towards you, and examine those things and say, is this an opportunity that other people would get? Why not? Or why is this not that? Why would they get that opportunity? And am I fairly being offered this? And that doesn't mean that like in terms of dating opportunities, it doesn't mean that I don't deserve to meet somebody just because I don't offend them with my identity. It doesn't mean that I don't deserve to meet that person, but it does mean
That's a big part of the problem, I think, is that with so many things like that, if one person can say no transgendered or no blacks, no femmes, no offensive, like whatever that is, you know, and they see someone else saying it, then they're like, oh, okay, it's okay. And then it becomes this widespread belief that we can just, you can form a bubble where you can't have anyone who's any different, and that's not. I just don't feel like that's what the community should be based on. Like earlier you mentioned Stonewall. Like Stonewall wasn't just for like these one group of people. They were fighting for all of us. They weren't fighting for just a handful of us. And for now for it to be more about this one kind of gay person being the kind of gay person that deserves respect from us. I'm not talking about many people. I'm talking about gay people only respect one kind of gay person to fit this mold in our own group, our own community. I think it's very hurtful, it's very damaging. And it also leaves us vulnerable from the outside. I feel like if there wasn't so much separation in our community, then something like the bathroom, not to bring it up again, but I feel like that bathroom law, there would have been a stronger fight. How many people were fighting for marriage equality when that happened? For marriage equality and up for it, God. But you know, I was around when it first started, so I guess, you know, when it first started, it wasn't that much of an uproar. People were more against it. But even so, I feel like marriage equality is like, people have a bigger stake in that than where someone's going to take a piss. Like, I just don't, it's just such a non sequitur. Who the fuck cares where you're going to do your number one?
Statistically, it's such a tiny part of the population that this whole thing we were talking about that it's not even worth going into. Yet, you know, people, I guess, have nothing else to do. I mean, there's so many other problems in government that can be fixed. Why is this on the front line? Like, there's people who can't get enough food to eat. I mean, come on.
It's because they've lost the fights.
Well, yeah, I guess that's why. And they think this might be an easy one.
They're being reduced to fighting the weakest, most vulnerable members.
This is going to be, exactly. That's a good point. That it's, hey, if a win's a win for them, you know, whatever. And I did like how you mentioned that it is a double-edged sword, the online thing, and you can go both ways. But I think the real danger is, you know, it kind of creates this online propaganda, and then it spills over to real actions, which is the real danger. Yeah.
I do think that as I've gotten older, I think because I've worked with I've worked with so many organizations now at this point, I've seen, you know, myself get marginalized so deeply, and almost very instantly in one case, with a certain organization, and it was very much like, well, you can't, they really like, well, you can't do that because like this guy do that. And look at him, basically. He's gonna go do that. You're not gonna.
How much do you think that has to do with color? How much do you think that has to do with race?
Oh, Johnny. And a lot to do with race, and a lot to do with masculinity. And I do think that if I cut my hair, if I wore my hair shorter, it would be a lot easier for me to be more palatable, because then I'm the kind of black person that they would want. They want a black person, they just don't want they don't want a man. They either want you to be like a complete queen if you're black, or they want you to be a football player. And since I am a lovely mix of the two, I get sort of delegated to the back rows. Talk to me.
And it's actually how do you personally feel about the comparison, making the comparison between black civil rights and the gay rights?
You just talk
For you, baby.
How much time we got left?
10 minutes? Thank you, sugar. I will say this. Being black and being gay, it's an interesting dichotomy. And I've seen a lot. But I would say that I don't love it when people try to connect the two. They're not connected. And people really try to be like, oh, well, we're the new slaves, we're the new, like, you're really not. so I really don't like that. And since I have with both, I have personally, and I think because I'm a larger stature and I'm kind of mean, homophobia has never been like a huge part of like my struggle. Like no one's gonna come up and like try and fight me in a bar. Like that's not real life. No one's gonna try and jump me, my big black ass walking down the street. That's not anything I've ever had to be worried about. However, again, big black ass living in Texas, mama gets a little nervous. So I will say that I think the struggle the struggles are very different. And while they share a strand, I don't really like them being compared too much. Much like I don't like the Holocaust being compared to slavery. They're very different things. And I think your fight should stand on your own 2 legs. I think don't go pulling other people into it.
I don't think, I want to say this, I don't think you can compare, because they're not equal.
They're not equal.
There's nothing very well. I mean, I
Say
understand.
that for
Obviously, everybody has the right to fight for rights.
Yes.
But I don't like that comparison because I don't think they're on.
They're not. There's so much long-standing generational damage.
You don't have generational gay.
Yeah, you have generational gay families that have been decimated and ruined by, the jail system or by stop and frisk laws or Jim Crow or segregation or institutionalized racism as far as education goes and boundaries and ghettos. It's a huge difference. But that being said, there have been gay people who fought for civil rights and there have been Black people who fought for gay rights, and I feel like it would be great if we could all just join forces without so much being like you said, who was hurt worse? Because we all fucking know who was hurt worse, at least in that instance. So I just feel like I just don't like it when the gay community tries to claim that. Don't do that. Like there's a one is a really quick point. Okay, I didn't see it. There's a really quick point I wanted to make. I want to say it was on Fox News. The question was posed, which word is worse? And it actually on the screen said, is the N-word worse than faggot? And it said N-word and faggot. So if you can't even write one, then that's the worst one.
Yeah.
So like that's the one. So what were you gonna say?
That's really interesting what you were saying, starting to say earlier about in the professional sphere.
Being a big flaming homo professionally, they love that. I've gotten 3 promotions in about 6 months, and they've pretty much said to my face like it's 90% based on personality. It's like you're a great hard worker. We got lots of hard workers. We don't have a lot of people like you, and they want me to be in the front, and they want me to be, making the noise and being fabulous. They want the fairy dust.
Well,
I found it to be a boon as well. I think that it's a good way to allow yourself to be
super
big.
quick. I mean, I work in the cubicle, I do software development, and in any job, the manager people, they're looking for someone who is happy with themselves, happy doing the work, and they come in positive, and it's paid off for you. And I found that, when I come in with a smile and I'm upbeat, yeah, maybe the code I released had a bug in it, but you know what? People want to deal with you. If you're grumpy, they don't want to deal with you. So,
My professional life got way easier when I dyed my hair pink. I was trying to be blonde and normal, and
Being normal is awful.
Yeah.
well, not being yourself, I think, is the key.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of the gay community that's very joyful.
Yes.
And I think that people like that part of it.
And that's what I call the fairy dust. In the back there.
I will say that Austin and Minnesota are very similar. Culturally, I think that they are very, very similar. It's a lot, they're both very open to the gay world. I think that I haven't worried about homophobia once since I moved to Austin. But they are both very white. And so Minneapolis and Austin are both very white cities, so you don't get a lot of racial diversity within the gay community, but you do get. Austin is a little more unique than Minneapolis in the sense that I feel like the gay community spills over into the straight community a lot. I think that it is a much more gradiated city. So there's a lot of half gay bars. Like Cheer Up Charlie's to me is half gay.
Or Kingdom,
Barbarella's is
Kingdom
half
I think is very half gay.
Yeah, so there's a lot more mixing, whereas gay bars aren't.
A lot more acceptance within one to the other.
Not necessarily. It's not necessarily that there wasn't acceptance in Minnesota, but in Minnesota it was just a little more. It was just a little more black and white. In Austin, there's a lot more gray area, but very similar overall. Buffalo.
Yeah, for me, I mean, Buffalo is, very white. And it's not a place people come to, whereas Austin seems like it's growing and there's a lot of people coming, like Bailey's moved here recently, whereas Buffalo's more like everyone's been there since they grew up, they have friends with everyone in high school, and no matter what group you're in, unless you've lived there since you're 5, you're not really part of their group no matter what flag you're waving, you know what I mean? So, so coming here, yeah, there's definitely, it's a type of city with much more influx of people, and with that, there's a lot of people who, their families aren't here, you know what I mean? So there's much more interaction, I think, and in leaving some of that baggage at the door, because you find out it's really not important. So that's, I think, is the difference. Whereas Buffalo, it's, you know, everyone's still living at home basically, and it's, you know, it's not very mixed, so to speak.
Well, I
Tell us what you really think.
hate
It has to be 18 per
Buffalo.
hour.
I hated it. I hated being there. I hate that I'm from there. I hate the community. I hate the government. I hate Buffalo. I hate it. It is out of any gay community. I've lived in a lot of different places. Spent a lot of time in Florida. I've been here for about 6 months. I spent lots of time in Canada. Buffalo is the single most racist gay community I have ever experienced. And that blows my mind to this day. I've been here 6 months. And it still startles me that I will go out to a gay bar in Austin and not deal with the racism that I dealt with in Buffalo. Blows my mind. I'm in Texas, in the South, not dealing with racism. It's mind-boggling. I hate Buffalo. Now, on the gay community aspect, I really do think that a lot of that, he said, there's not a lot of diversity. It's kind of like one brush. That's just the gay. But I also think that's kind of cool. I think that's a cool part about Austin. Like, no one really bothers.
What do you mean one brush?
Like one, it's like I said, like the gay bars are kind of gay, and it's kind of straight. They're kind of a little bit of this, and a little bit of that.
Like,
Like,
we've got a lot more Q than most cities.
yeah.
Yeah.
But no one really seems to care that much. You like each other. You're happy to be here. The sun is shining for the most part, and it just seems like people. I think that probably all the transplants have a lot to do with it too. It just seems like the diversity might be lacking, but there's a lot of acceptance. I feel like it's not the most diverse. Everybody here, like I said, I've only lived here for 6 months, but I work in the restaurant business, and when South by Southwest happened, and the outsiders descended, I was like, what the fuck just happened to us? I was like, what happened to the mood of this city?
Yeah.
I'd only been here for like 5 months at that point, and I was like, it was a complete different city. And I was like, this is terrible, they need to leave. It was right. I was like, what just happened? The worst kind of people. And I was like, the city that I was really going to love, it really became something else. There's so much love, I think, in Austin, so much acceptance. I don't know, I feel not like hippies, maybe. Yeah, maybe a little bit.
It's got a hippie history.
It's got a hippie history. That's what it feels like to me. And I really love being here.
You know what Peach just said, I think the numbers is 78, it's an average of 78 people a day are moving to Austin.
Really?
I've heard every number under the sun.
Well, my wif's doing a canvassing job right now that has to do with the upcoming vote on Uber left. And they're getting their actual numbers from what city, but it's 78 a day is the average of people moving to Austin.
Okay, idiots. Sorry, I don't want to get you off. We got to give up the room.
Other people might know.
No, but we never got I don't want to give over to it. I do.
But to your point, I think Buffalo's the opposite. I think there's like 70 people a day leaving.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.